am in the right group, because I've changed all the settings around. Every time I press live, it ends up on my personal page. It's really annoying. Anyway, how is everyone? Got a big plane going over as we speak, so it's a little bit noisy. I've tried to move the birds as far away from the microphone as possible so you don't get that background squealing. I'm a little bit tired today. I'm on mum duty. We're on school holidays, and I've had Pearl non-stop doing the mum since last week, and she's just about to go to Steve's house, and so I'm really tired. I'm really feeling it. I don't know how everyone else is feeling. I'm feeling really, really tired today, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this class, and I'm like, Angel, come on. We need to share this. So if I don't make sense, I apologise. As you guys know, Pearl sleeps with me, and that's totally cool. I'm all down for, co-sleeping together. I don't even care who's in the bed, really. I'm definitely feeling a little bit tired. How's everyone else feeling? Give me a hands up. Give me a rock and roll. Give me a hello. Today we're going to talk about grief and loss. Hey, babe. How you doing? I'm going to ring you after this. We're going to talk about grief and loss today. And I usually like to prepare for these classes for about 2 to 3 hours before I actually run it. Yeah, I'm a bit tired too. Not actually just a bit tired, I'm a lot tired. I usually like to prepare these classes about 2 to 3 hours before and actually sit in as if I'm actually in the class for those couple of hours before I actually go live. And I haven't really been able to do it today because I'm on mum duty. I was going to turn my phone off. So we're going to have a bit of a riff. I've got some notes here about the way I want to go with this particular class, but as per usual, when I sit and think about these topics, they're so big. They're really, really big topics. Like, you can just go in so many different directions. And when it comes to grief and loss, it's a biggie, actually. It's a big one. And when I sit down hours before the class to look at the oils that I want to talk about, again, I've got like 30 oils here, that you can use for slightly different parts of the grieving process. And I want to keep the class short. I don't want to be on here for too long. So I had to sit and really think about the most important oils that I want to talk about today. But I think what I might do is take a picture of all of them after this and just explain how they all kind of do their thing, because we're so blessed actually to have this plant medicine for our emotional healing. And grief and loss isn't just emotional, it's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, behavioural, social, the list goes on. I mean, it's really, really big. It encompasses quite a lot. So I'm going to kind of pick some of my favourites that I've used through my own grieving process, and some that I've researched that I haven't used for this process that pack a punch. And I might throw a couple in, hey Bex, couple in that Bex spoke about yesterday when she was going through her grieving process and still going through it with her dad. So there's lots to play with here, and always remember when it comes to essential oils, it's a very personal experience. So even though, I use these books to death, my Modern Essentials book and look at all the tags in both books. I'm such a nerd. Even though we've got all the information in these books that tells us therapeutically how we use these oils, it's a very personal thing. So one oil might feel very helpful for you with the grieving process and not even be listed here. Or there might be other oils that are like, you need this for the denial, you need this for the acceptance, and you go, it's just not working. So always work with what works for you, okay? Really, really important. My neighbour came over last night. We were having a yak over the fence, and she's like, I don't even know what you do, You just seem to have this perfect life. And I'm like, it's not even perfect in the slightest. And we started talking about essential oils, and she does know I sell essential oils, but she came over and we ended up chatting for like 3 hours and really got into talking about grief. It was really interesting. I can chat about this stuff till the cows come home. And she's like, do you get bored doing this? And I'm like, hell no. Give me your hand. Let's give you a scan. Let's see what comes up. And you know, 3 hours later, she had found her favorites. I just love doing this so much. She had found her favorites. We'd worked out what the scan had pulled up, and then we pulled out a couple of others, and she worked out what she really anchored into and that she felt would help her in her grieving process. And it's a really personal thing, you know. I can sit there and put a whole lot out saying, you know, this will really help you, but you might find a random one in the pack, in my box of oils, and go, actually, that's what I want to work with. It's very, very personal. But today I'm gonna riff about some that I've used myself through the grieving process and the loss, and some that other people in my team have used as well. And if there's anyone in here that might have used, see what I mean? There's always one animal that starts up. I might just shut the front door actually, because that just encourages her. There's always one. Always one. So what happens when you've got 10 animals. I can't remember what I was saying now. If there's anyone in here who's using anything in particular for your own grieving process right now, just jump in, throw it in the comments, and love to hear from you. So let's get started. So when we're talking about, actually no, I mean, I don't think I need to introduce myself anymore, do I? I think everyone in here knows who I am. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm Angel. This is a Diamond Club class, and I love talking about doTERRA. I love talking about natural health. I love talking about energy medicine, vibrational healing, everything to do with how we can heal ourselves without using pharmaceuticals. And as I always state, I'm not against pharmaceuticals, but if we can use, in this case, essential oils to help us through this particular process of grieving and loss, then, you know, that's a win, because they're non-toxic, they've got no synthetics in them, and they've been around for lots of time, way before us. So we know that they work. So if you've come into this class and you're a newbie, maybe jump back through a couple of the videos and have a look at the pinned post, and you get a bit of a blurb on who I am, but I think everyone knows who I am. So this is our first Diamond Club class for May. We've got, this is our last month. That'll be 4 months of Diamond Club, and then we're finished. And then I think I'm going on a massive detox in June. Isolation for me has encouraged a lot of eating. Not too much booze, but a lot of eating. And I put my pants on before, and I'm like, those pants are definitely a little bit tight. Not even a little bit tight, they're a lot tight. So I think I'm going to spend the whole of June on detox. So this is our final month, guys, for Diamond Club. Woohoo! So again, it's going to be all online classes until they lift the restrictions. If they lift the restrictions to 5 or more people, 5 to 10 people coming together, we can run classes again. We'll see if that happens in May, I'm not sure, but for now we're online. So if anyone's listening in and you think some of your friends and family would like to listen to these classes, just add them into the group. Easy peasy. They don't need to be with doTERRA, but if you feel like that these classes would actually help them, they might be going through grief and loss, they might be going through, you know, any of the things that we talk about, digestive issues, hormonal issues, skincare issues, just add them in, guys, and let's get them some support. Okay, so grief and loss. Hey guys, yeah, if anyone wants to do the detox with me in June, give me a hands up. Tammy Jane, she's going to be running this detox for me like she did last year. I lost 9 kilos last year, and I'm ready to lose the 9 kilos again. I can tell you that they're back on. After I bought that pair of jeans the other day and put them on, it was like packing 2 sausages into the legs. I was like, that's it, Angel. No more food for you. You're starting to live on smoothies again. Anyway, grief and loss. Now, when I had a look at, grief and loss for me, I liked coming to these classes and talking about this from a personal perspective. I don't want to come in and rant out of a book, but there are bits and pieces in here that I have taken out of one of my books to just give an idea of the processes of grief and some of the other supports that we can use as we go through it, other than using essential oils. But other than that, I like to come into these classes with personal experience and how I've used oils for different times that I've gone through some of these things. So if I've gone through hormonal up and downs, or I've had digestive issues, I like to talk about the things that I've actually experienced myself, rather than just going, look, this should work for this. I talk about my own personal things. And if anyone here wants to add any little stories into the comments, just jump in and we can have a chat as we go. When it comes to grief, actually, when I looked it up, I'm like, how do they actually explain grief in the dictionary? And they're like, grief is the response to a loss. The loss could be as big as a death, or it could be losing your favorite ring. It could be your favorite sporting team losing, and you're having that momentary grief, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." I mean, grief is a response to a loss in a nutshell. And when I think of grief, personally, it's something that me personally, I don't like, just because of my constitution, I don't like being in that space. I like to stay really strong. I'm just being really honest with you guys. I'm always honest in these lives. I like to be really strong and happy and joyful and at it and positive. But the fact is, you can't actually always stay like that. And when you do go through these moments of loss, whatever they are, as someone with my A-type personality, it just punches me right in the face. And because I'm like, just keep going, you're going to be fine. It doesn't matter that, this happened and this happened, this happened. I cannot believe it. They're about to start the mower. I'm just going to shut the window. It's always something, this crazy neighborhood. And yeah, I'm the kind of personality type that's very like, I just can't deal with this right now, and I just truck on. I'm a real Trojan horse, but that's just not healthy. That's not healthy at all. That's, just putting it under the carpet, going, we'll deal with it later. And in my case, when I talk to my friends about grief and loss, particularly with loved ones that have passed over, that's a very specific type of grief. And I haven't personally lost anyone close to me in my lifetime. But I have a slightly different story where, and I've spoken a couple of times about my dad in here, where he kind of just disappeared for 15 years. So my parents got divorced because my dad was an alcoholic, he was violent, he wasn't a particularly nice person through his own trauma issues. Not excusing the behaviour, but I do understand how it got to that. And because he disappeared, and he would kind of, occasionally send messages saying, could you meet me here? And he never showed up. So we went through like 15 years of this. When I look back, it was a really prolonged grieving process because we never knew if we were going to actually see him again. We never knew where he was. We were so little, and we were constantly in a state of kind of fight or flight, going, we know that Dad's there, but we don't actually know if he's ever going to come back. And so even though he didn't pass over, in many respects, I felt throughout my life that he had died, because I was like, we never hear from him, like ever. We don't know where he is. And then we had a stepfather after that when my mum remarried, and John's great. But it was like a prolonged period of grief going, there's a loss here. There's a profound loss. That's our father. And I can speak for my brother and sister as well. And there's just this not knowing of what the outcome is. So you kind of go through your own version of grief. And when I look at my brother and sister, we've all kind of grieved differently. We're all very different people. And I look at my own story, and I ended up just wearing a mask, going, look, I'm just going to kind of ignore that part of my life because I have no control over it. I don't know if I'm ever going to see him again. And you just kind of become a different person, and it's a part of the stages, which I look at when I was looking through my book this morning, looking at the stages of grief. And I've definitely gone through all of those stages over a really long period of time. So some people might go through these stages over, a year, 2 years, 3 years. My mum's a really good example. She lost both her parents a few years ago within one day. It was really crazy. The whole story, how it all happened, was really crazy. And then I witnessed my mum go through these grieving stages, not really knowing how to support her, not knowing how to understand her, and at times not even being compassionate, just going, this is so crazy, I'm just going to block it out, if I'm being truthful. And I think I think she's kind of got to acceptance now, which is the final stage. But when I look at my own life, and especially with my father, I feel like all the stages of grief just got stretched out over a lifetime. When I look at my own behavior and, decision making and actions, and, when I look at the stages of grief and loss, I feel like I've actually permanently been in those stages, jumping between them actually, because there's no set way of going through grief. Like there's 5 stages, but you might not actually go through some of them, and some of them might be switched around, and some of them you might just sit in for the rest of your life. Like anger is number 2, and you might just stay angry forever. And I know people like that just cannot move through the loss. And it doesn't matter what you say and whatever you do, that's their journey, and that's where they're at. And you have to be compassionate, and you have to be kind, and you have to be supportive. And it's, the whole grieving process it's a beast. It's a real beast, actually. And when we look at these stages, so number 1, denial and isolation, where we buffer the loss, we block out the world. I definitely know when I've been through that in my life in regards to my father, and also in regards to Steve. So when Steve and I split up 8 years ago, that also started the whole process of grief and loss all over again. And that was really, really hard. That was so hard for me. We moved states. And when I say hard, it was hard for all of us. It was also hard for Steve as well. But we moved states, we moved back to the farm, and we started a whole new life in a place we hadn't lived in for 25 years. So you've got all that change, and then all the grief and the loss and the mourning and the sadness, the deepest sadness of, what we thought we had that we didn't have. And so I felt like I had this kind of overriding umbrella of grief with my father, who still to this day, I'm not even sure where he is. He just pops up occasionally and will make a phone call, and you kind of exchange a few words, and then just disappears again. And so that umbrella just never kind of, I kind of sit in the final stage of acceptance with it now, but it took a long time. That was many, many years. Whereas I look at like my mum, who seems to be at acceptance now, which has taken a couple of years. Everyone's very different, and you can never judge someone for how long that takes. So denial and isolation, we just go into lockdown. We block everyone out. Especially if someone's died really suddenly, something's happened very fast and just triggered you into that, total denial. I don't want to know. That's number 1 when it comes to the stages of grief and loss. I'll go through some of the oils with some of these stages as well in a minute. I'll just run through these. Second one is anger. Know all about it. Oh my God, know all about it. I think through my life, in regards to my dad, in particular, not so much these days, but particularly when I think of my 20s and I was out partying and drinking and doing drugs occasionally. That was just a response to being angry at not being able to control the situation that I thought, should have just been a really simple one. I'm like, you're my dad, you just should be present. And he wasn't. He just wasn't even capable. But as I said, these days I have an acceptance around it. I'm like, you just have to accept people the way they are. People show up the best way they can show up. And when you reach that level of acceptance, it just makes life a whole lot easier. You stop blaming yourself. You stop shaming yourself, thinking that you're not enough. All the things that go on with the grief process. So when we get through anger, we kind of go into bargaining, which is the if only statements. If only I had done this, if only I'd been a better child, if only, I'd made dad happier, and same with Steve as well. Like it was equally, they're both, you go through exactly the same stages, or pretty much the same stages through that loss. And that was a really big loss for me. My dad was a big loss, and when Steve and I split up, that was as well. We had a little tiny baby, and it was actually just heartbreaking for everyone right across the board, and took a very, very long time to recover. That wasn't a 5-minute recovery either, and I think that we're in a really beautiful place now, as you guys know. After bargaining and, postponing, which is postponing the inevitable, you're kind of going, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done that, if only this had happened, if someone's passed away, if only we got better medical treatment, etc., etc. We then might drop down into a depression. Okay, so sadness, regret, just needing a really big hug. And I've definitely been through that as well. And I remember when I was going through it, probably more so with Steve, and, you know, people telling me to just get over it. And it's probably the worst thing you can say to someone when someone says, just get over it. Because grief is such a personal experience. And there's definitely times when I've been on that side as well, telling someone else who's grieving, going, come on, babe, you can do this, you can do this, and not showing enough compassion in that moment to know that it's a very individual journey and a very individual ride, and people move through these stages when they're ready. And sometimes people are never ready. Some people get stuck in these stages, like depression, number 4, and they don't come out. I think of my mum grieving my dad as well. So it wasn't just us grieving dad, obviously my mum, and she was married to him. And I feel like, you know, she's 66, I think. And I feel like it's only really now that she's kind of cool with the whole thing. So these things can take an absolute lifetime. You can have a mask on and a happy face and run another family, have a great career, do whatever it is. But behind the scenes, you can still be living with a broken heart, okay? And I think I lived with a broken heart my whole entire life. The reason being that when I started energy healing work, and I worked with a couple of healers that I still work with, and they're like, you know, your heart is broken. It's closed and broken. And so I've spent the last couple of years opening everything up and doing it kind of with trepidation, going, you know, if I do this, what's going to happen? And realizing that you can spend your whole life living like that, and you're just missing the joy. You're missing the joy in the everyday because you just close down through loss and the grieving process. So if you're listening in and you can kind of look at your life across the whole, where you started and where you are now, and think of those times where you've gone through losses, do you feel like you're still in any of these stages, or do you feel like you've come out the other side with true acceptance, knowing that it is what it is, and being grateful for the experience? It's so empowering and so powerful. And if you haven't, that's okay as well. It's totally okay. When we're sitting in number 4, which is depression, it can get a little dangerous. You know, we don't want to be moving into something as serious as suicide. We want to make sure that we've got everything at our fingertips to make sure that we can move through to number 5, which is acceptance. Okay? And some people don't get there. Some people do. Some people get to acceptance and then revert back into some of the other stages. I've definitely been there. I've definitely been there. I've been there with my dad. I've been there with Steve, where it's like, yeah, we're all good. And then I'm like, actually, no, we're not. Or I'm not. I still have unresolved wounding within me that needs to be processed. And it's all totally okay. You know, it's just moving through the motions. Grief is just it's emotional pain in the body. Physical pain's one thing, but emotional pain in the body is just crippling. It is so crippling. And it can come on from so many different things. It doesn't need to even come on from a relationship breakup or a death, loss of a job, especially if you're the breadwinner. That loss can be something that is just so simple to most people, but to you means everything. The death of a pet. Some people are like, who cares? You know, your dog died. But I know that when I lose my pets, it's going to be heartbreaking, especially my cat. He's 16. Like, he's lived 16 years of this crazy life. And I'm like, I just know I'm not going to cope. Lots of different things, like even loss of a friendship. You have a Barney with your girlfriend, or you have a Barney with your sister in my case, and you go through loss. You go through the grieving process going, I really miss her. You know, I just want to hug her. I want to talk to her. But, you know, we're going through the motions. So it doesn't have to be death. It could be anything to do with loss, okay? Really, really important throughout this class to understand that there's absolutely no judgments throughout these different stages. Everyone works through them, you know, on their own timeline. I'll just check in the comments if anyone said anything. Yeah. Hey, ladies. Thanks for joining. So I'm just going to jump to a couple of oils that I feel are really good for some of these stages. And as I said before at the start, work with oils that work for you. Some of these you might smell them and go, that's just disgusting and that's not going to help me come through this. So, grab something else that works for you. It's not set in stone. When we're looking at denial and isolation, I picked 4 oils. I'm not going to go through them at length, but 4 that kind of really came up for me that when I looked in my emotions book as well, kind of really spoke to me. Frankincense. You can't go wrong with frankincense. We talk about frankincense all the time. From a physical perspective, it does basically the A to Z of everything. That's how I see frankincense, as the god of the oils. But if you're sitting in stage 1 where you're in denial and just like, oh my God, I just need to close down, and you start the buffer process, frankincense is so good for keeping you centered into source so that you've got a lifeline in a nutshell. I love frankincense so much. I use it in all of my Reiki. I use it in my meditations. I always use it in that moment where I need a little bit of help right now and I can't really feel like I'm getting help from anywhere else. I actually need it from source. I think when you're in that denial and isolation, it's nice to have a lifeline. And frankincense is really good for that. Eucalyptus is actually really good as well. And when I spoke to Beck yesterday, she mentioned eucalyptus, which I didn't really think too much about. But when I think about when I use it, this is just healing in a bottle. And this is just ridiculous healing in a bottle. It is the oil of wellness, and really, really great for people who are feeling defeated, clingy, despairing, wanting to escape life, wanting to escape responsibility, feeling imprisoned. It's everything I was just talking about, and feeling completely powerless. So eucalyptus, something that when I think of back in the day that I used to eat eucalyptus lollies and that's all they were there for, eat a eucalyptus lolly and, it cleans out your respiratory canal. And when I smell that, it is very, very healing. It's beautiful. You can just stick it in the diffuser. I mean, one of the best ways to use these oils is just to inhale out of the bottle. I mean, it's so therapeutic and it works straight away. Or stick it in your diffuser. Guys, you know what the diffuser is. You pop some water in there and a couple of drops and you get the diffuser moving the oil into the air so we can take it in. Same way. Pop some in the bottom of your shower. This is so awesome on the bottom of the shower, so you can just actually have a whole body inhale, or just rub down the bottom of your feet with it with some carrier oil. Fractionated coconut oil is my favorite carrier oil. Eucalyptus is really, really good for that. God, I just want to sit here and inhale it now. It's so good, just like full clear. Cypress is really good as well, so it's the oil of motion and flow. So really good for people that are feeling controlling. So when you're going to denial and you're closing down, you're trying to control everything around you. Fearful, perfectionistic, rigid, stuck, and tense. So this is everything to do with stage 1. Cypress is a really interesting oil as well. It's a very interesting oil. It doesn't smell like eucalyptus, but again, tree grounding when you really need it. When you're kind of like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, you can go into fight or flight. Pull out your cypress, guys. Really, really good for helping the flow back in and helping you be more adaptable to the situation. Ginger. Ginger me up, guys. Ginger, the oil of empowerment. Ginger is amazing. Oh my God, I have this in the diffuser all the time. I just love it. So when we think of ginger, we think lots of things when we think of ginger, but when we're talking about it from a grief perspective, it's really good for those that are sitting in victim mentality, powerless, unwilling to take any responsibility. So this is when you could be sitting in the denial stage in total isolation, feeling defeated, not present, stuck, and blaming others. Okay, these are all really valid feelings, by the way. We're not sitting in judgment here. These are very valid feelings, and I have felt all of these many times over my life as I've gone through my own grieving process. Ginger is really amazing. Super strong oil for so many reasons, but really, really good for all of those things that I just mentioned, and great for stage 1. When we jump into stage 2, I brought up one oil, which is cardamom, which is really good for anger. Kim talked about it the other day in here when she used it on Joshi, her son, who was getting angry at his teacher through homeschooling. Cardamom is really good for anger. Isn't it funny? Like, I think of cardamom and I think, you know, I eat it in my butter chicken. But when we look at it purely for what's in this bottle, it's really good for helping people find objectivity. Really, really good. So anyone who's really inebriated by anger, frustrated, objectifying others, blaming, and completely unable to think clearly. So as we go through the grieving process and we are just mad as hell, God, I know I've been there. I think I've probably called some of you in those moments going, I think the roof's going to come off shortly. I'm absolutely fuming. And you just can't control it because you're just so angry at what's going on, especially when it comes to loss. You're just going to victim mode, you're going to blame mode, you're going to why is this happening to me mode. And I've definitely been there. I've definitely been there. If you guys have been there, yell out. I'm sure I'm not the only one. As I inhale cardamom, I'm like, oh man, there's just something really unique about cardamom. It's grown in Guatemala. Hi to Michelle, our quasi-Guatemalan princess in our team, who's married to Danny, who's from Guatemala. It's very special. And I want you guys to remember cardamom, anger. And do what Kim did the other day. I think she just rubbed it on the bottom of Josh's feet with some fractionated coconut oil. And he had relief immediately. Just felt the calm come through. Okay, one of the other oils I love using for anger is Forgive out of the emotional aromatherapy kit. I use this all the time for anger. I wish I was a cool and calm person all the time, but I'm sometimes not. Sometimes I'm irritated. And I've been trying to do a Facebook Live about irritation all week and just haven't got around to it. So when Pearl goes with Steve later, I'm going to jump in. So I've only got one oil there for anger, and it's cardamom, and that's stage 2. Stage 3 is the bargaining stage. If only I had done more. If only I hadn't said that. If only I had, you know, been more compassionate. The if only stage, okay? When we're just like trying to kind of backtrack from what's actually happened and we can't change it. Postponing the inevitable, in a nutshell. Guilt, you know, oh my God, like trying to retrace everything and make it all better. I've got one oil for that, which is bergamot. When I research grief, bergamot comes up with every single article when I'm researching. This is such a strong oil, and I use this a lot with Steve. When we were living in Clunes, I used bergamot. He probably doesn't remember, but I used to use bergamot in the diffuser every single day to bring in a new sense of peace within our family, which is so important to me. So important. You guys know how important my family is to me. Steve knows how important it is to me. So bergamot is really great for stage 3 when you're just trying to, I don't know, make some sense of everything that's happened. You've come out of the anger and you're like, just bergamot me up, please, right now, like forever, 24/7. It's so amazing. And Beck spoke about it yesterday. I've used it to death. And it's the oil of self-acceptance. So it's the oil of relieving feelings of despair, self-judgment, low self-esteem, where you need more self-love and more self-acceptance when you're sitting in that stage going, if only I had done more. So to bring in more confidence, bring in more, you know, I'm good enough for this situation. I'm going to get through it. It's very, very cleansing. Bergamot is so cleansing. So it's really good for stagnant feelings, limiting belief systems, feeling that you're unloved, feeling that you're not good enough, as I mentioned, and for those seeking to hide behind a facade that everything's okay when it's not. It's so good. Oh my God, I use this to death as well. I love bergamot and lime together, actually. Love bergamot and lime. Bergamot and Siberian fir. Bergamot and eucalyptus is really good. It's beautiful, actually. So I've got that down for number 3 for the bargaining, number 3 stage of grief and loss. Number 4 is depression. Now we can use a billion oils for depression, and when we're feeling really, really down, when we don't want to get out of bed, we're like, this is never going to end. I'm never going to get over this. This is literally the end. And for some people it is. Some people don't ever recover. You know, I actually sometimes think of my father and just think that he was an alcoholic, and you know, I feel like he really struggled with depression for a number of reasons, which I won't go into. But you know, when you drink that much alcohol, there's a whole lot going on underneath. And I kind of wish sometimes I could just get some essential oils into his hands to help him. Not that essential oils save the day and make you not an alcoholic. I just have to clarify that. But they certainly help us when we're in that very dark place going, I don't know which way is out. And we have so many oils here for that place. When I think about the moments that I feel down, where I'm like, I don't know which way we're going to go today, I feel like, you know, you have your really good days and you have days where just everything goes to shit. I certainly have those days. And the oils that I've written down are mostly the citruses. So we've got wild orange, we've got lemon, we've got lime. You can't go wrong. You can never go wrong with the citrus for mood lifting. These guys are all incredible. It's why I put these on first thing in the morning when we get up. Every diffuser has a citrus put on in the morning, especially lime, wild orange, peppermint as well. Peppermint's really, really good for stage 4, for just helping, just through osmosis, through the diffuser, through using a carrier oil, just helping you, you know, stay afloat, so to speak. I'm never going to come in here and judge anyone who's sitting in that dark space. But what I want is for everyone to realize that if you just have a diffuser going with some of these beautiful uplifting oils, it might just help you get through that day. And in those moments, it's just getting through the hour, getting through the minutes that counts, because it's just such a dark, freaking dark place, and scary and hopeless. You know, there's so much despair. So to think that even inhaling an oil or having the diffuser on can help you just get through that particular moment is really important. But if you're sitting in stage 4, I also really encourage that you get support, whether it's if you need to go and see the doctor, obviously, and if you do need pharmaceuticals, no judgment. Get a therapist, get some counselling, get a support group, get a community of people who are there to look after you. And I've lived this in my family where, you know, when people are really struggling and people say, look, just reach out. When you're feeling like that, the last thing you want to do is reach out. So it's kind of it's just that weird dynamic that comes with depression that everyone always says. I see it on my Facebook feeds all the time. Why don't they just reach out? And I'm like, they're not capable of reaching out. You know, they're struggling. They don't want to see people. They want to stay isolated. So I'm like, if I can just get some oils in there just to help those minutes go by, you know, it's just one little part of the bigger support system. So if anyone in here is listening and struggling, please reach out. Please reach out. I'm here to chat. Helichrysum is really good as well. This is the oil for pain, for deep emotional, you know, destructive pain. It's really good for physical pain as well. But this oil packs a punch. I'm using it on my scar at the moment, actually. It's really, really good for scars as an aside. But this is the oil for pain. There's my daughter. She's still in her pajamas. Say hi. He's like, yeah, hi. Hi, guys. Pearl's on school holidays. So when we look at helichrysum in my book, it's for anguish, trauma, feeling hopeless, feeling despairing, and feeling deeply wounded. So as we go through the grief process, this is a big part of it. I've been through it myself. I've watched other people go through it. It is awful, really awful. And it's that part of being human that I just want to wrap up in a rug and make everything better. Yeah. Cake? Yes, you may. You know, you just want to get in and make everything better, and sometimes you can't. And you just have to kind of be really accepting of that as well. People go through these things at their own pace. All right? But helichrysum is amazing. So if you guys aren't using any helichrysum, jump in and grab some. One of my very, very favorite oils. When you read in here, it's all emotional pain, physical pain too, but all getting in and healing the soul that hurts, that kind of deep spiritual pain as well, to help the transformation back to joy and happiness. We just made cupcakes. Mine have grapefruit icing on them from doTERRA. Okay, so last one is acceptance. What am I on? 39 minutes. Okay, I want to do this in 45. Acceptance. So when we get to acceptance, again, some people don't get there. Some people do, some people don't. It's a personal journey. I think of my own journey of coming to acceptance. It's taken me a really long time. If I'm actually really honest, it's taken me a really long time. You can put on a smiley, brave face, but underneath, and you can work and run a business and run a house and everything and have great friends and family, and that's all great. But deep down underneath, you're still holding the scars from the grief and the trauma. And so the reason I do all the energy healing work is to move those scars on so that I can actually finally feel free. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Feeling free from the ties to that grief. And when you feel tied to the grief throughout your whole life, you just feel held back. You feel like you just cannot be your whole freeing, amazing, brilliant, divine self because you've still got these things holding you back. So through the acceptance part of grief, which is the final stage, it's about letting go, acknowledging what happened, knowing that you'll always have had that experience, but it's letting it go so that it doesn't control your life anymore. My favorite oils for this are geranium, which is the oil of love and trust. I use so much geranium, it is ridiculous. This is in my cart every single month with doTERRA. And it's so weird because a few years ago, couldn't stand it. It was this oil I really deeply feel, and rose, which I'll talk about, which helped me open up that heart space again and start to trust and go, you know what, let's just let all of this stuff pass through because it's going to be okay, Angel. Because we just shut down, we just close everything down and go, I can't deal with it and I'm not dealing with it. Well, sometimes we do deal with it, but I have a tendency to just go, shh. I like cry back the emotion. That's what I do. I just like cry back it and go, we don't have time for that right now. We've got to keep this show on the road. Gets cry backed and stuck somewhere. And then when I go see my healer, it depends which one, but if I usually see the guy, he's just like, ooh, I can feel the cry back going on in there, and he's just like whoosh, pulls it out, and I'm like, oh my god, that was good. So if anyone else in here cry backs their feelings, does anyone know what cry back is? You know when you like shrink something into a piece of plastic? I feel like that's what I do with my feelings sometimes, because I'm a real Trojan horse. I'm like, let's keep going. But geranium was so good for me to actually stop me doing that and just go, Angel, you've got to sit with it, you've got to feel it, you've got to process it, because if you don't, it's going to manifest and kind of express itself in other ways, and it probably won't be pleasant. So rose is also one of those oils. I just cracked open a new one, actually. I love that feeling. Cracked open a new jasmine 2 days ago, smashed in my bag, all gone. At least my bag smells nice. But rose is probably the top oil. For me, rose is the top oil for grief and loss. It's the highest vibration. It is so, so good for helping you feel loved in that moment when no one else understands what you're going through and you can't communicate properly. In fact, you don't even want to talk to people. It's such a personal thing. You're like, you don't know what I'm going through because you're not me. You might then swing back into anger. You might swing back into denial. We have this thing of swinging back into these stages. And rose is a constant. So always have your rose roller, because when you've got it in over the heart chakra, it's always helping you stay open to the process of releasing and eliminating these emotions and this, everything that's come up with this for you. Rose is really good for letting everything go, so it doesn't hold you back. Okay, we don't want to be held back by loss. Okay, we just don't. It's all very valid, but we don't want to be held back by it. And I say that because I felt like I was throughout my life. I was very held back by my loss with my dad because I never felt good enough. I never felt loved. I never felt, I don't know, I kind of felt invisible actually for most of my life. It's something I bring up with my healers. I felt invisible because I was kind of like, I don't know when he's going to come back. And if I just kind of, just wait and see, maybe one day everything will be okay. And it never was. Like I don't even know where he is. He's somewhere. And I think when you use your rose oil, it's that oil, and console as well, which is actually the oil for grief and loss, which is out of the emotional aromatherapy kit. This oil is one of the top oils for grief and loss. It is freaking amazing and smells amazing. When I use these oils, console or rose, I know I'm enough. I know I'm enough regardless of the situations I've been through. And in that moment, I just feel loved. I can connect into source. I don't need validation from anyone else around me. You know, it's nice when my daughter says, I love you. It's beautiful. She doesn't do it all the time. But in those moments, using those oils to know that you feel supported. Feeling supported is so important. Oh my gosh, there's so many times where I don't feel supported. And just ask Steve, he gets the phone call. And I like to be able to use my oils to go, you know what, regardless of what's going on and people not being able to show up, I feel supported right now. And rose is freaking amazing for that. If anyone else here uses rose, yell out, it's so good. Just for overall moving everything through from the first couple of stages out the other side. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Oh shit, I didn't realize there were so many people on here. It like froze and I was like, oh, that's it. Hey guys, hey. Hey. That's great. So, what am I on? 45. So if anyone's got any other questions, just jump in. But they are the main oils. There's literally so many oils here you can use for this process. Lavender, all of the emotional aromatherapy kit is actually amazing. Cheer, motivate, peace, passion. They're all really good for this process as well. The whole kit is amazing, whether you buy them as the little blends or you buy them as the touch rollers, depending on how you want to use them, whether you want to use them in a diffuser or whether you want to use them as a perfume. I just wanted everything. I wanted to have the touch rollers when I needed them, when I was having a moment going, oh, I'm really struggling right now. I'm not coping. And it is really hard because you're so hard on yourself going, you should be over this, Angel. You should be feeling grateful. You should be feeling joyful. You should be feeling an acceptance right now. Why do you feel like that? And you can just really beat yourself up. And you just have to be so loving in that moment and so nurturing of yourself. Otherwise, you can spiral into another whole, shame and, why can't you be better than you are kind of scenario. And you just kind of have to sit with those feelings as they come up and just let them process the way they need to. I think where the problems come in is when you get stuck in some of these stages, which people do. I certainly have, and you can't get out. And so you got to ask for help, which can be hard, as we mentioned. So that's why I love these very simple oils, because they are not expensive. What's geranium? $37. Geranium has changed my life. $37, changed my life. You buy a pair of bloody Lululemon pants and they're $120 or more. $37, and it helps you open up and start to trust and love again when you've been so broken, so heartbroken in many of these instances. I think I've felt heartbroken. If I actually think about it, I think I've felt heartbroken my whole life because of my dad. And then through certain relationship breakups, more heartbreak thrown on top. Not blaming anyone, but when you live perpetually in that space, you're missing the joy. You're missing so much joy. And so that's why I talk about energy healing work all the time. You guys know how much I love energy healing work, to get in and open up those chakras, open up those channels. That's why I studied Chinese medicine, to get everything open again. So you're just like, wow, what have I been missing? I feel amazing. I feel alive. You get the sparkle back in your eye. You look fondly at these experiences that broke you and go, I'm actually okay, thank you, I'm okay. And that's living. That's why we're here. That's why we're having this 3D human experience with a whole lot of multi-dimensional stuff thrown on top. So guys, lots of oils to play with there. If anyone has any questions, please reach out. Just send me a Facebook message, or if you've got my phone number, just send me a message. Happy to chat. And if anyone feels like they are potentially stuck in any of these stages, please reach out. I'd love to chat. If anyone is listening and you haven't bought any oils, please reach out and I can help you get started. This month, if you're a newbie, you're going to get a free lime when you purchase 100 PB through Diamond Club. And if you do 400 PB, you get the marjoram thrown in as well. I've also got my freebies up in this group. I can't even remember what they are now. I think it's Ravensara for every 125 PB. Then I think for 200, every time you spend 200 in this group, you get a Copaiba. If you spend 300, I can't remember, 400 and 500, I can't remember them now. Go and check the post, but there's lots of freebies this month for all my customers. Tons of freebies because it's our last month of Diamond Club and I'm feeling extremely generous. So there's, if you do 125, if you do 200, if you do 300, 400, or 500, you get a free something. Free frankincense, free Virage skincare kit, free adaptive kit, the whole kit. Just go and check the post. I can't remember now. It's because I've had hardly any sleep. And yeah, if you're a newbie, you get extras as well. I won't go through how doTERRA works and all that sort of stuff. You guys already know that. And if you don't know it, just reach out. But I hope what I've gone through today in terms of grief and loss within the time frame that I wanted to go through. I mean, I could sit and talk about this for hours and hours and hours like all my other classes. But I just wanted to touch on the stages, how it's affected me in my life. And most people probably wouldn't even realize that if you don't know me that well, because you just see me going, let's go. But behind the scenes, I've had a really, really big journey with grief and loss, really big journey that's kind of gone through my whole life from when I was really little to right now. And what I've learned is that I don't want to carry it. I don't want to carry that baggage because I know how much we can achieve as humans on this earth when we're not carrying the baggage. We can achieve so much. We can just really step into our brilliance and go, right, let's make some big shit happen. And when we're tied down with stuff like heavy emotions, we just don't get to see all of you. So if you're struggling, reach out, or reach out to a medical professional, reach out to a therapist, counselor, whoever you need to reach out to and go, I want to get through this. You have to want to get through it as well. A lot of people use their grief as a comfort, which is fine. You know, I've definitely done that before. But we want to see all of you in all of your brilliance. So reach out if you need to. On that note, I'm going to run. I think my daughter has cracked into the cupcakes and I think she's just making her way through them. So naughty. And I'm going to see you guys on... I can't even remember, I just can't think. I've got a class in 2 days' time on something. I can't even remember what it is now. Anyway, check the notes. I hope that's been helpful, guys. Let me just check that I've gone through everything here. Yeah, I'll come back in the comments in a minute, but I'm going to jump off because I don't want to go over an hour. I hope that's been really helpful, guys. Have an awesome week. I'm on school holidays this week with Pearl, so you might see me in or you might not. It's a bit of a juggle, but yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying isolation. Hopefully, I think the Queenslanders are out. Hopefully we're out shortly. I can't wait to see everyone again. I can't wait to get to my favorite cafe and talk to the locals. Oh my God, there's so many things I want to do. I can't wait to run classes again face to face. Love talking to people face to face. Oh my God, I think we're on the tail end, guys. It's exciting. And it's interesting because through this period, people would be feeling grief and loss through this COVID-19 period as well. Lots of grief and loss, you know, losing your freedoms, losing your ability to make money, you know, lots of grief and loss around this particular pandemic as well. So if you're really feeling it, I'm sending you some love. Hopefully we're out the other side really shortly. Okay, I love you guys and I'll speak to you soon. Lots of love. Bye.